The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Okay, so as you probably know, I'm a political scientist, which means that mostly this historical part of my academic background is usually used only with a kind of how to say, like a variable which I additionally use to understand some facts that are showing out at this certain point of time and not in history. But since we figured out that we didn't have any political science type of analysis of how the parliamentary arena has been evolved in Slovenia after the independence on, we decided to go into one project in which our main aim was to collect and then to analyze all the electoral programs of the so far competing political parties and also coalition agreements to see whether these data do show any kind of trends and could be used as interpretation of the contemporary political, or actually parliamentary arena from 1990 on in Slovenia. And in this regard, we did find out, of course, that we can also track the changes and challenges that political parties in democratic settings are facing and addressing in these times. So, during this project, I actually managed to meet for the first time also Jure, and we did, how to say, like, make very fruitful and effective cooperation, and this is one of the products or outcomes of our cooperation so far. And since, even though this is not kind of a traditional historical analysis, you will see that there are some kind of general trends that do show that we can find some possible interpretations, historical interpretations in the near future for the first decades of Slovenian parliamentary democracy from the 90s on. And in this regard, what I would like to show you is that some concrete data and evidences that do show a kind of image of the contemporary parliamentary arena in Slovenia, and this image actually points to, on the one side, stabilized democratic parliamentary arena at one side, but mostly in a non-stable political party setting. That means that in a way we did manage to stabilize democratic parliament, multi-party type of parliament on one side, but on the other side the work of political parties as the main actors in this parliamentary arena is not at all that stable as the parliamentary arena is. So this is one of the main, I can say, findings that can be seen through those data that I will go through. And on the other side, especially in the last half of a decade, there are some quite obvious changes pointing out compared to the first decade and a half of the democratic parliamentary practice, which means that maybe there are some kind of forecasters for something new or something different that would appear or come out. We cannot, of course, say this for sure at this right moment, but there are some potentials that can speak about this. What I did for this presentation is, or especially for this analytical insight, I don't know how much you did already address this kind of a normative political science perception and assessment of the parliamentary arena in Slovenia from the independence on.
Until independence.
Okay. So I will just go very quickly through these normative assessments, more like assessments, not that much, assessments out of facts. And on the other side, then I will show you some concrete public opinion polls data and this analytical data about electoral programs and coalition agreements, from which you will be able to see the quite interesting ideological or non-ideological space, political space in Slovenia that turns to be kind of characterized for Slovenia at this point of time. So, you definitely know that Slovenia as a state has a very kind of a weak, moderate statehood tradition. This is definitely something that, of course, also addresses or influences on the parliamentary practice and maturity, something that also Adele was brilliantly addressing in her keynote speech. That is definitely something that is very much missing in our statehood tradition. And that political pluralism was formally introduced after 1989. Slovenian constitution defines the state system as a multi-party parliamentary one with 2 chambers. Still, this is also out of historical practice, this kind of 2-chamber tradition, which in practice, if you ask me, definitely doesn't work at all in a way that is supposed to work on the paper. But this is maybe something for the debate. Political parties, which is very interesting, are not directly a subject of the Constitution. They are not addressed in the Constitution, but there is a special Political Parties Act, which was introduced, and together or afterwards also the special law on political campaign. Okay, this is from 1994, as you can see, which means that the first legal framework for the political parties was accepted actually 4 or 2 years after the real democratic practice was parliamentary practice was established in the state. What is also very important to know is that despite the first very lively political parties activities in the late 80s and the beginning of the 90s, a lot of political associations actually disappeared during the first 5 years of the independence. And the main reason were either human or financial shortcomings, while on the other side also the fact that a lot of these previous political associations or civic associations did not continue with their initial starting work and how to say with their starting strategies for their existing, but they did want to reshape themselves into the so-called hardcore traditional political parties with very, So, and this was the main reason why actually, and as you will see also through the data, a number of political parties quite dramatically decreased from the elections in 1996 on, parliamentary elections. That means the second after the National Assembly was formed. Up until nowadays, what we can see still that we do have a very loose-fitting state legislation and regulation that concerns the work of political parties and also the work of parliament. We, for example, we don't have any kind of legal act on National Assembly. Everything that concerns the work of National Assembly is stated in the Constitution. Only the elections into the National Assembly are subject of the legislation, but not the National Assembly as such. In this regard, of course, we do trace inside the state and also through the international organizations assessment a lot of transparency problems. Which means, for example, that we don't have any kind of obligation or even direction that would define the need to publicly or officially report about the number of political parties, the number of the members of political parties. So in practice that would mean that actually one person can be a member of, I don't know, like all 7 parliamentary parties at the same time, and none of them would know that this person is also a member of the other 6 political parties and so on. So it's kind of a very messy situation, and it's also kind of a very messy also when it comes to the finances, the political campaign, transparency and so on. These are still the issues that are very much on the agenda and are problematic. And to, in a way, continue from the beginning of the 90s on. From the electoral system point of view, we have a proportional parliamentary electoral system with a 4% threshold. From the elections in 2000 on. Before that, we have 3.3% threshold. In average 7 or 8 of around 20 competing parties or party lists are normally voted and do enter into the national parliament. In average, commonly 4 of them would form governmental coalition. Very interesting information, for example, beside one coalition this was the first right-wing coalition in the period between 2004 and 2008. Not even one coalition would come to the end of their term in the shape that was formed in the beginning of the term. What do we also can see is a pattern of changing stabilization over time, which corresponds on one side through a very slight changes inside party arena in the first 15 years, as I already said, while afterwards volatility rate is very high and corresponds in dramatic changes in voters' choices in choosing newly established parties. That newly established parties would mean parties that would be established a month or 2 months before the elections, more or less out of the blue, in a way, and would be run by a kind of a political public celebrity type of a person. So somebody who is very much known and recognizable and so on. And this is the case from the elections in 2008 on. What is also the case, yes, that this is more or less the case or the pattern for mainly left-centered or left-wing oriented political parties. Only one slight change was in 2011 with the right-wing party that traces this kind of experience. What is also very much red line of the whole parliamentary and party arena in general in Slovenia, very low public legitimacy and trust, which is detected through public opinion polls, through media, constant decrease and increase in parties' membership, and also a slight but incremental but kind of a quite obvious decrease in the national parliamentary election turnout. That means very slightly but incrementally the turnout rate is slowing down. Yes, and here also constant decrease in parties' membership. This is also only our assessment because, as I already said, we don't have any official or kind of a verifiable information or data that would show us how many members each political party actually has. And here are some data. These are the data that are showing for the elections into the 4 main institutions of the political system, the turnout rate, and as you can see, actually in all the cases these turnout rates are quite for sure, but definitely falling down. And as you can see, the National Assembly turnout is here. So actually from this, the highest rate in the 1992, we dropped here. And this is kind of a quite obvious decrease, even though it's not, it still is like 20 or almost 30% in the last, for the last elections. While the last elections were second term elections in 2014 were special also because they were called in the mid-summer term, which means that people were mainly on their holidays when the elections were called. These are the vote choices from the 1992 on. And what do these vote choices show? From a kind of a stable proportion of the votes here into dramatic rise or decrease from 2000 on. And this dramatic, for example, dramatic rise was for LDS, the running always coalition party from the independence on. And look here, they disappeared. Actually, you don't have a party anymore. And the most dramatic fall down was in the elections, first in 2004 and then again in 2008. And then you have these special points, for example, this one that appeared here, got the highest. Actually, the highest result in at the 2011 elections, and 2014 they actually are out of space. And here are we, so it's I don't know why the computer decided to use this unrecognizable color, but here are we. So. And it's again a question, what's going on with us? What will happen with us? But we are not the only one. For example, here you have in 2011, you have the Ljubljana lista, for example, here out of the blue result, and nothing here anymore from the 2014 elections and so on. So a lot of dramatic changes, as you can see, in this period. In the vote choice. Yes, here are some basic data that I already addressed in a way. Interesting is that, for example, in the last elections, we did have here you can see the lowest number of political parties are actually the same as in 1992 were competing. I was not able to find I did prepare this PowerPoint presentation over this night, but I was not able to find on any official statistical site the number of the candidates here, so I'm sorry for this information, but it will definitely be very interesting. Then, as you can see, number of elected parties shows parliamentary stability. You see, but actually, what is interesting is here, number of newly elected and number of not re-elected parties. And this one is very interesting. And again, quite interesting and challenging information also here, number of coalition parties. Mostly they would be, as you can see, 4 or 5 or something like that. We are 3 now. So something that would reflect the 1996 situation, for example. Issue of trust. Here is just to see how actually the trust in political institutions is dramatically low in Slovenia. The information that shows still kind of a trend, even though the data are from 2012, but they are quite the same also if you add additional 2 years. And you can see that the trust in political parties is the most problematic. And the next, which is quite which are quite close, are into the National Assembly. This is the blue one, and the green one into the blue one into the government, and the green one into the National Assembly. They did not trace, I don't know why, the trust into the President of the Republic. President of the Republic is here. So, oh, I'm sorry. Issue of mistrust is here. So, how much you mistrust, and you can see that the lowest mistrust is here. So, this package, political parties, together with yes, the highest mistrust. Yes, sorry. Political parties, National Assembly, and government. At least here, the citizens are how to say, like, consistent in their assessment. They can quite recognizably connect that those 3 institutions are going together. And here is also a question of trust. So question of trust is here in blue, and question of mistrust is here in red. Into the institutions in general, not only political institutions, but you can see from below on the highest mistrust is into the president of the into the Prime Minister, thank you. Prime Minister, political parties, government, and then you have here National Assembly, church, courts, and the highest trust on the other side. And these are the data from 2012, and I'm quite sure that it would not be the same anymore. Into the health system, which is in a really terrible shape right now. A lot of corruption emphasized and identified, so definitely this would not be the case anymore. But probably into the army, this would be still quite high. Also into the President of the Republic, police. I wonder what would be right now with media or constitutional court, because both of them do create quite importantly the public agenda in the last years in the country. And the second crucial part that I would like to address are the ideological spaces, as can be seen on the one side from the ideological positions of the political parties and their offers on one side, and on the other side by the voters. So how do actually, or whether it is possible to identify left and right political ideology of the voters and of the political parties. And what we can see from this perspective is that on the one side, quite typical, stable and equally distributed ideological redistribution of voters' party identification can be seen, where left-centered voters are quite less stable than right-centered voters. For example, here are the results of the self-identification of the voters between left and right. Right is blue, in blue shade, and left parties are here in red. You can see that left ID voters are much more, how to say, like visible, and do identify themselves quite much more into a concrete party than do right ideologically self-defined voters. But on the other side, if I would have the data to show you the trends from the 90s on, you would see that these trends here are much more stable than those that you identified on the left side. So, and this is also the data that I got over the night, and I didn't know from today on that we did get, for example, our party predominantly left-centered and left self-identified voters in that kind of issue. Even though on the other side, if you compare others that did gain the results here, you can see that we are quite close in this moderate or center position as, for example, our official party of the retired person Jesus are. So, then another thing, no consistent classical ideological cleavages can be traced in the Slovenian party system and also in the parliamentary arena. What does this mean? That means that if there were some slight, how to say, attempts or evidences in the beginning of the 90s that the party would position themselves according to the left and to the right scale, according to how they see the economic and social priorities and preferences of running the country and the citizens. This disappeared during the time. That means that actually there is no classical left or right wing party that could be today identified according to their economic or according to their social solutions. Which means that we have now the situation where we have like economically left-oriented party, which would be at the same time, from the social perspective, quite on the opposite side. That means very, very right-wing-oriented. So that means that from this kind of classical ideological cleavages, we cannot use them in this, how to say, like a traditional style. But on the other side, a very obvious block on the symbolic line of the cleavages can be seen from the independence on. And symbolic cleavages from the independence on meant especially our interpretation, our party's interpretation, and also voters' interpretation about the contemporary historical events that went from the Second World War on. Questioning who was on the right side, who was the real elements, and so on. And this is one thing, and the other is all those questions or issues that do address the question of equality. Where are the borders, or to which kind of equality of traditional values and norms but again, this symbolic left or right wing do not correspond to the social or economic cleavage or perception at the same time. So that means that symbolical conservatives do often behave as economic liberalists in practice or vice versa. So typical cleavage theories and practice from the Western democracies do not work for us. Here you can see additional graph that shows how this left and right self-identification is more or less kind of equally distributed, regardless of whether voters identify themselves as left, that means bright blue, or dark blue as right. And here are also a few data about the issue positions of Slovenian parliamentary parties. This data shows how actually the average of the political parties' positions in their electoral programs and also in coalition agreements, actually, as you can see, is trending. That means that none of those issues would, over the time, importantly be very much different, or that would kind of reorient the priorities importantly or drastically. What is shown is the fact that, especially in the last years, much more attention is devoted to the economy compared to the previous years, as you can see. But still a lot of the priority is still given into the social welfare here. This is the average for the first decade and a half, and now you can see the drop. Both green lines are for the 2004 and 2008. This emphasis on social welfare is dropping. But on the same side, the need for addressing economic issues is actually rising. While the political system issues also are rising in this point, and the others are more or less like kind of staying, mainly the same: international relations, freedom, democracy, social order, and social groups. And here again, a graph that shows the similar as the previous one, the addressment of different fields or domains of political and social life. Why it is interesting? Because it again shows that there are no huge differences among parties in the priorities that they address either in their coalition, either in their election programs or coalition agreements. And here also issue positions of Slovenian parliamentary parties and coalition agreements. And both early elections, both of the parliamentary elections in the last, both of them were early elections. That means 2011 first early elections and 2014 the second early elections. And what is interesting here is that you can see what did we do here? We did count the number of sentences that were addressing in the electoral programs of each party, and the number of seats that they actually achieved after the elections. And what you can see, for example, we did address one of the lowest number of issues in our election campaign and gained the highest number of seats. So electoral programs and issues are not obviously relevant anymore. And not that we are the only one. Pozitivna Slovenia, which was the winning party in 2011 elections again, the lowest number of addressed topics and issues, and the highest result. And for example, here you can see the attempt or the forces given into the writing of the program for the main opposition party in 2011 were definitely the cost, how to say, the outcome of the strengths and the energy put into writing the program was definitely not addressed according to the result of the seats that was gained by the party. And look here, the same party in 2014. And the result?
They learn fast.
Yeah, they learn fast. So you can see this kind of a trend here. And to conclude, something that actually surprised me the most when I entered into the real politics, even though I did had a lot of academic research findings that did confirm this statement, is the role of the media in the contemporary political space, especially parliamentary arena in Slovenia. The media had a very, very powerful role in publics. That means that they do actually create political agenda. And they have this kind of power that they can put the topics on the top of the agenda, even though they are not the most important topics, or they are even not the topics that would be addressed inside the political institutions. And because of this effect, they need to be addressed. And they are kind of running instead of the main or the essential political actors. They do quite often run the political and parliamentary and governmental agenda in the last decade. And here are some claims that I gathered through the range of interviews that I made in the beginning of 2012 and 2013 for the purposes of those projects, from which you can see, and it is quite seen and obviously seen that they do have their kind of they see their mission, and their mission is definitely not addressing or corresponding to the mission or to the priorities of the political institutions, but vice versa, on the priorities that they would set according to achieve we could say this kind of yellow type of news and a lot of affairs type of reporting. So this is it. Instead, I did well down. Instead of a conclusion. So something that definitely also marks very importantly and very much the work of parliamentary and political parties in Slovenia in the last decade, and from this point of view, the contemporary evolution of parliamentary democracy in our country. So, thank you very much, and I'm sorry because I was definitely...
No problem, you're very busy. Thank you very much for questions. You look tired, but still. Please? Coffee.
Coffee.
Yes, coffee. Alan, please.
Speaking about media, what about media ownership? So,
yeah, definitely. There's kind of a more or less official and public network correlations between the media owners and the political parties, or the companies that do have direct contacts with the political political parties. So actually, it's a kind of a clientelistic network, which is more or less obvious. For example, right yesterday, a new media was formed, and the main owners of this new media are the MPs of SDS, of the main opposition party. So they did establish a new media with the explanation that all the existing media do not cover equally and fairly the situation and the state of the affairs, so they need to establish a new one which will kind of balance the reality, the truth. While, for example, from the newspaper media, you have quite a clear connections and obvious correlations to some political parties. So it is generally known that you can recognize media or typologize media according to whether they are closer to old left-wing or right-wing parties.
Only one question. You were mentioning the election turnout that is decreasing. So we are facing a phenomenon, overall the phenomenon of non-voter. Okay, we're facing this phenomenon for the last 150 years. But anyway, I'm going to see, do we have some data or some research done that could explain this phenomenon? Who are these non-voters? Are they always the same? Why are they not turning?
Well, we did some analysis of political trust issues for some other project, and what we found out is that there is a kind of a constant number of non-voters which are either not interested at all or some are not satisfied with the whole situation, and they are in that kind of a sense, kind of a protest non-voters. But what we at the same time found out, comparing the dropping of political participation rates in Western democracies, we found out that actually this trend was emphasizing and was actually on the agenda in Western democracies as well 20 years or so before that. So in a way, we found out that, or we conclude that actually nothing really serious is happening. And what was also shown in the analysis that we did for the first pre-parliamentary elections in 2011 in Slovenia was that right in a day after the two new political parties were established during the electoral campaign, right after that time, actually the interest of the people to go to the elections rise importantly. So that means that you always need to find some kind of a trigger to get them to the polls. So it's not dramatic at this certain point still, but it is also kind of an important sign that needs to be constantly addressed. And from one perspective on, some groups believe that if you would lower down not the threshold, but the years of the for the so that this could rise the number of or the turnout again. But it really depends actually. I think that mainly it is not something that would be promising out of the data, but in case that the electoral offers would be good, then probably also the threshold, the turnout would be higher or non-problematic. That means that around around 60 or 70, something that is also the average in other established democracies.
Any other questions? Shall we continue with the contemporary situation, or shall we go back 20 years back to Czechoslovakia?
Thank you very much.
Arnold, thank you very much.